We are also in the 20th anniversary of the Initiatives for International Dialogue and the 14th year, Excellency, when we launched the Asia-Pacific Coalition on East Timor 14 years ago in this very hall. So it is with some distinguished memory that we remember that event. This is part of a month-long celebration with IID, with lectures on IID's thematic programs, such as conflict resolution and prevention, peace building, democratization, and right to self-determination. His Excellency's lecture would be the first in the launching of the Larry Ilagan Forum Series, South to South Solidarity, the East Timor Experience. To all that, we welcome each and every one to this hallway and to this great experience and historic moment as we bid all of you good evening and welcome. Thank you.
May I now call on good friend, the convener, the chair, the main spokesperson of the first Asia-Pacific Conference at East Timor, a good friend of some presidents, and a thorn to some, including the one that wanted to bar us 14 years ago in this hall. A former board member of IID, let us welcome Mr. Renato R.C. Constantino, Jr. You're welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Aside from my concession to this occasion by wearing a Barong Tagalog, allow me to break protocol. After all, it was this irreverent attitude that allowed us to convene the first Asia-Pacific Conference in these very halls where my good friend Jose was banned. It was 16 years ago, I recall, when I first met Jose in Bangkok. There was a huge conference called the People's Plan for the 21st Century. But what was important was not the official conference, but the chit-chats, the quiet meetings on the side. That's where I met Jose. I had wanted to meet with him because I had read the book and seen his picture in the book written by Jill Joliffe. He was much slimmer then. At that meeting, we had all agreed, that was a very small meeting, we had all agreed that the plight of East Timor had been largely kept under wraps for 18 years, a veil of silence. True enough, there were small groups here, small groups in other countries, but by and large, Indonesia had managed to keep their deep, dark secret under wraps. It was at this small meeting where we had promised Jose that we would convene a small group of Filipinos, organizations who would be interested in taking up the responsibility. The conference was actually postponed by a year. From 1993, it was postponed to 1994. But from 1993, late 1993, all the way up to the conference, Jose's long-lost cousin, then sitting as president of the Philippines, decided, some of his advisors decided that the conference could not or should not be allowed to push through. For 8 months, from November of '93 all the way up to May, Ramos assigned General Jose Almonte to take care of yours truly. We were in constant contact or rather he was in constant contact with me, letting me know that he knew where I was. I'd go to Cebu, I'd receive a phone call. I'd go to Addis Ababa, I'd receive a phone call. I'd have a conference at the PCED. I'd receive a phone call at the desk, just to let you know that I'm around. But the cooler heads were still prevailing up to the time when some hotheads in the DFA and the military, both here and in Indonesia, decided this can't go on. My discussions with Almonte was, when he asked who we had invited, I said, everybody from Finland to Fiji, from the First Lady, Danielle Mitterrand of France, all the way up to Sting. I didn't even know who Sting was at that time. And so I said, just allow us to continue the conference. It's going to be quiet. I promise that we will invite all Timorese of all colors, all Indonesians of different persuasions. In fact, we had this conference here, one of the names recommended by General Almonte. Even before he recommended the name, we already knew who he was, and he was invited. He was even allowed to say a few words here. But I claim this privilege and honor of not calling Jose His Excellency. After all, that's only a title. I recall the days when we were followed by the special branch in Thailand, following us around in cars and motorcycles. When we fooled them, there was a small human rights conference in Bangkok, only 30 people. And yet, all venues were closed. Thammasat University, Chulalongkorn University, after accepting, closed their doors. Even commercial establishments closed their doors to us. Only a Buddhist nunnery opened their gates to the 30 people. And East Timor wasn't even the main topic. It was only a 2-hour or 1-hour optional presentation. But they were asking us for our work permits. My main job during that conference was not actually to attend that conference, but to liaise with my friend and find out how we could bring him into the conference. The special branch during that conference was really terrible, is an understatement. Only 30 people in one room. They'd have Polaroid cameras, Instamatic cameras, video cameras right in our face as we were holding our conference. Real intimidation. But promptly at, I think it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we declared a coffee break. Before that, there was an announcement. I was supposed to read Jose's statement, but at 4 o'clock we declared a coffee break. So everybody went out, had their coffee, special branch were having their cigarettes. Then in comes a diplomatic car, Portuguese embassy, the flag waving. And Jose steps out with Mari Alcatiri and says, I just came by to say thank you. We cannot attend the conference, but we're late for the planes. Because the special branch were too far away, we hustled them inside, and he read this long statement. And from there, we were followed by the special branch for rebooking. We turned around, went to the International Hotel, had some drinks and some laughs, while the special branch fell asleep. And the next day, we left. I left with this thick newspapers where we were on the front page. Somebody who stayed behind, a Filipino stayed behind, I think got deported. I recall also when I was not allowed entry, my entry to Malaysia was barred. You were banned, as usual. But little did we think that in a few years, after the upset where we were the raging, roaring headlines for 3 weeks. Even Miss Universe could not grab the headlines. The faces of Jose Ramos-Horta, Janana Gusmao, and so many others were displayed, banned. Foreign guests were also banned. Those who managed to sneak in, their visas were revoked. Actually, those who volunteered to announce their names, they had their visas revoked. I recall also during that time, they sent word. How can we stop? We're already black and blue, the government said. How can we stop this from escalating? I recall we sent Alex Padilla to meet with them. I only had 3 conditions. One, reinstate the visas or take off the ban list. The 10 names were put on the ban list. Reinstate the visas of the 10 foreign volunteers. And I want it signed by all 3 commissioners, including and especially General Rojas, who kept threatening us during the conference. Alex came back with a signed document with only one request. Please don't gloat. We did not gloat. I recall stories from Jose where there were occasions when he would have to sleep at train stations, flying from this place to that place, crossing time zones without any regard to his health. He was much younger then and could stand the rigors of traveling back and forth across time zones. I recall, and little did we know that we were nearing the end, when we spoke at the Portuguese Parliament. It was first time I spoke before an official body. But what was more enjoyable were, of course, the stories, the little drinks after. How can I call Jose Your Excellency when I still have the picture of him carrying my grandson on his shoulders at my house when he and Shanana were first able to come to the Philippines in 1999, I think. But most of all, I'm very happy to see you alive and well. And finally, in this hall, where it all began for us, where we were, the Filipinos and the foreign contingents were able to contribute our own little bit to the history of East Timor. So without further ado, otherwise I'll go rambling on, I'd like to introduce my very good friend, my compañero, Jose Ramos-Horta.